Welcome. In this video, we will discuss about the increased emission of N2O, which is your nitrous oxide. So this again is a GHG gas. What does it mean? It is also a greenhouse gas. What type of gas it is? What are its implications? We will discuss about it as we move forward in this video. So the first thing that we need to know is that a recent research paper has come out and which kind of pointed out that the human emission of nitrous oxide have increased by 30% between the 1980s to 2016. So you see the amount of emission which has increased is of the level of 30%, which is like really huge, and that happened in the span of 1980s to 2016, almost within 30 years. In fact, on 25 years we were able to increase the N2S from the by 30%. So that is one of the troubling factor which has been highlighted by this research paper. The research was conducted through an international collaboration between the International Nitrogen Initiative and the Global Carbon Project of Future Earth, a partner of World Climate Research Program. So these are the few agencies which are associated with this research paper: International Nitrogen Initiative, then Global Carbon Project of Future Earth, and which is in partnership with the World Climate Research Program. Now let's just quickly run through about the World Climate Research Program also. So it is an international program that helps to coordinate global climate research. So basically this is, as the name suggests, it is related to the research in the field of climate change. So basically this is their major target area of work. It was established in 1980s under the joint sponsorship of World Meteorological Organization, International Council for Science ICSU, and has also been sponsored by Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO. So basically Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission plus International Council for Science plus you have World Meteorological Organization. So these three are the major organization which is associated with the World Climate Research Program. So this is you just have to tertiarily know about that and you don't have to delve really deep into it. Let's move forward and come back to our topic of nitrous oxide. So let's first try to understand the properties of the gases. So it is a greenhouse gas, as I already mentioned, it is a greenhouse gas, and it is 300 times more potent than the carbon dioxide. So if you remember, most of the agreement on climate change revolves around reducing the CO2 in atmosphere. But what has happened is that N2O, which is also a greenhouse gas, has its emission has been increased since 1980s itself. So it is basically, you have to understand along those lines, and it is even more potent. It has the third highest concentration after CO2 and methane. So CO2 and methane are considered two of the greenhouse gases which have the maximum concentration in the atmosphere, and the third one is your N2O. N2O is also the only remaining threat to ozone layer. So if you remember the Montreal Protocol, which was to stop the use of CFCs, and later they have also come up with the HCFCs, so that basically the gases which were causing problem or which were leading to the ozone hole could be tackled with. Right now only N2O is the one which is posing a threat to the ozone layer, for it accumulates in the atmosphere over a long period of time, just like CO2. So it also has a very long period of time. It can live in the atmosphere for up to 125 years. So you can just see the span of time they could live in the atmosphere is 125 years. Its global concentration level have increased from 270 part per billion in 1950s to 331 parts in billion in 2018, which is a jump of 20%. So its concentration has been on increase since 1750s itself. So that is also a very alarming rate at which the N2O concentration is increasing. So these are the few basic things that you need to know. First of all, that it is a greenhouse gas. Second, that it is even more potent than CO2, where all the climate change efforts has been going around. And it is the third highest concentration greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. Then it could live in the atmosphere for a long period of time, like around 125 years. Also, it is the only threat to the ozone layer as of now. So these are the few things that you need to know about N2O. Let's move forward and try to see what are the major findings of this research paper or of this study. That first of all, it is the most comprehensive studies ever published for like nitrous oxide. This is the first ever detailed studies. It combines both natural as well as anthropogenic sources. So it is not only talking about the human sources, but how the nitrous oxide is emitted from the natural resources. So it take account of both. The study found that 43% of the total emission came from human sources, and most N2O emission came from emerging countries like India, China and Brazil. So these are the observation which has been made. First of all, that 43% is coming from the human resources. So the anthropogenic reasons, 43% are the percentage through which they contribute to the emission of N2S. And in that too, the major culprit, or you can say the countries which are contributing to the maximum emission of N2O, these are the emerging economies like the India, China and Brazil. Increase in its emission mean that the climate burden on the atmosphere is increasing from non-carbon sources. So this is again one of the kind of epiphany, or one of the kind of the major finding which the climate researcher or scientist or policymaker have to work on, that there are even non-carbon sources which could trigger the global warming or which could trigger the climate change. So the non-carbon sources should also be taken into consideration. It also highlighted the dichotomy of the climate crisis and global food security. A major proportion of N2O emission in the last 4 decades came from the agricultural sector, mainly because of the use of nitrogen-based fertilizer. So if you know, in India, NPK is one of the most famous fertilizer which is used, which includes your nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. So the use of nitrogen based fertilizer has increased the emission of nitrous oxide in the atmosphere, and hence agriculture sector could be considered as the main contributor. The growing demand for food and feed for animal will further increase its global emissions. So because now the food security need to be provided, the animals are also need to be provided with the feed. So it's not like that its emission is going to go down, but it is going to go up only, and which could directly lead to a conflict between the way the countries are feeding people and stabilizing the climate. So there is a clear conflict going on in terms of how the countries are planning out to provide food security or to provide the feed to the animals, at the same time how they are stabilizing the climate. So this is the major things which has been discussed in the research paper. Now let's just try to pictorially look at things that which are the reason which are causing the maximum N2O. So agriculture and wastewater. So if you can see over here, this is considered as the maximum portion of emission of N2O is coming from agriculture and wastewater. Then you have biomass burning, fossil fuel and industry. Then you have indirect emission in the form of various sources. Then you have other fluxes, then land, as well as the atmospheric chemical link which kind of sinks it. So you just have to pictorially try to see. So in orange color what you are seeing is the anthropogenic regions, in green color are the natural sources. So the land and ocean are also generating the nitrous oxide. And finally in blue also you are seeing the natural only, but it is the sink which is coming from the atmosphere itself. So these are the few things that you need to know about the nitrous oxide in general, and why it is important that the policy maker should also have focus towards the non-carbon sources. So if there is any doubt, feel free to drop a comment. I hope you have understood this video. This was important from your examination point of view. In fact, in terms of writing the essays even on climate change, you could include that not only the carbon source but the non-carbon source could also be the one which could lead to the climate change eventually. So yeah, that's all about this in this video. Let's meet again for more interesting topics. Thank you.